a young warrior, raised far from civilization, challenges the intergalactic academy. Will she be able to prove that fragility is just an appearance, and true strength lies in reason and self-control? The portal doors swung open with a soft hum, releasing ozone and cool air. There was a wide passageway ahead, flanked by armored cadets. Some were clad in green leather and Craxian plate armor, while others had smooth, silvery skins that shimmered like polished glass. Many had sharp eyes, mandibles, or fangs, and some had no visible eyes at all. They all turned to look at her. She did not flinch when Miroslava stepped onto the platform. She was wearing a simple blue uniform with no jewelry, implants, or pulse blasters, just a standard shoulder bag and a holographic tablet in her hand. Her appearance was not curious, but uncomfortable. "Is that her?" someone whispered. "The Traveler of Worlds." "It looks so small," said another. "Fragile." A stocky Zaranax cadet in a scarlet exosuit snorted. "I thought humans were supposed to be dangerous." Miroslava ignored them, her boots making no sound on the metal floor. She didn't look back or make eye contact with anyone. She walked quickly and without a smile. Her movements were too quiet and measured. On the briefing podium, Officer Alaria adjusted his hologram and looked at her file. "Miroslava, your designation is the Traveler of Worlds from the Terra sector, and your psychological profile indicates suppressed aggression. For now, you will be staying in the B-8 dormitory alone." She nodded once and took her key card. Later, in the B-8 dormitory, Miroslava began to sort out her things. The room was sterile and white, with one cot, a table, a closet, and a ventilation unit in the corner. There were no posters or personal items, just her bag, which she had locked with a retinal scan. Inside the bag was a folded cloth, black and scarlet, with the coat of arms of her family. She put it in her locker and closed the door. The combat training class started early, and Instructor Care, an insectoid with 8 arms, began demonstrating hand-to-hand combat techniques at lightning speed. Miroslava watched in silence, her eyes darting from one movement to the next as she memorized the patterns. She remained silent throughout the class. Miroslava looked up and saw a cadet who stumbled and dropped his tray. She narrowed her eyes in concern and stood up to help. She walked over to the cadet, picked up the fallen tray, and returned it with a smile. "Here you go," she said, and the cadet looked at her gratefully. Miroslava nodded and returned to her seat, while the cadet sat down again and seemed confused. He looked at his tray, then at Miroslava, then back at the tray, and so on. He repeated the same actions over and over again, each time looking at Miroslava and the tray. Last night, someone had painted a crude drawing on her dorm door. He depicted a man pierced by a mandible. Miroslava looked at him. She didn't try to erase it, but just opened the door and went inside. The next morning, there was a weapons training session, with live firing simulations using pulse blasters. Miroslava achieved perfect accuracy without missing a single shot or making any unnecessary movements. Kyer looked at his holographic tablet in amazement. "Miroslava, where did you learn to control the pulse discharge?" he asked. She replied softly, "At home," without looking up. Kyer glanced at the instructor. She remained silent. Other cadets watched as she left the training ground, passing by Tarn, who spat on the floor near her boot. She didn't react or stop. That evening, rumors began to spread, turning into bets. They said she wouldn't last a week, that she was too soft and quiet. They were betting that Tarn would break it. By the next day, Tarn was standing in the middle of the barracks, surrounded by cadets. He spoke loudly so that everyone could hear. "Tomorrow," as he announced, "we will see the true nature of the Wayfarer of Worlds. She won't be able to escape, she won't be able to hide, she'll kneel." A burst of laughter erupted around him. Miroslava stopped for a moment as she passed by, then continued on her way, keeping her hands in her pockets. In her dorm that night, she opened her locker and looked at the folded cloth. Her fingers skimmed the edges, over the scarlet embroidery, over the badge of a forgotten human regiment, erased from the records after a diplomatic incident. Her mother's emblem, the one she was told she would never be worthy to wear again. Miroslava closed the locker. Outside, the corridor lights dimmed, preparing for the night. Inside, she was sitting cross-legged on the floor, with her back straight and her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed to match the rhythm of her heartbeat. She wasn't meditating, she was remembering. Tomorrow will be a day of noise, so today it will remain stationary, and the galaxy will not know what is coming. In the battle arena, the air was filled with the smell of ozone and polished steel. The cadets lined up in rows, ready for battle. A loose semicircle formed around the central battle arena, their armor clanking softly as they shifted to get a better view. Every seat in the spectator area was occupied, and even the off-duty instructors leaned against the railing to watch. Tarnak stood in the center of the arena, bouncing on his heels. His red exoskeleton glistened under the overhead lighting, and his fangs were polished, curved upward like hunting blades. A predatory grin stretched the corners of his wide mouth. Miroslava was sitting on a bench right outside the arena, without equipment, without armor, and without visible weapons. She sat cross-legged, elbows on her knees, her expression unreadable. No one had seen her blink for the last 2 minutes. "Does she think this is a joke?" the Saran cadet whispered, and Tarnak heard it too. "Oh, she knows," he shouted. "She's just trying to look calm, but inside she's shaking." Miroslava did not move. She remained motionless, her eyes fixed on Tarnak, who circled around her like a predator, sizing up his prey. "I spent some time reading last night, you know. Terra's atmosphere contains poison in the water and volcanic ash in the soil. Fault lines intersect in hurricane zones, and your planet is a mistake, a miscalculation." Miroslava looked up once, bored. "That look won't save you," Tarnak spat, his face impassive, his eyes cold. The room held its breath as Instructor Kyer activated the containment field around the ring. It was an unofficial challenge, Cadet Tarnak against Cadet Miroslava, a non-fatal confrontation with control protocols. We all knew the rules, no deaths, but accidents happen in training, so Kyer pressed the start button and the fight began. With a speed that belied his size, Tarnak charged forward. His right hand went low with a feint, and his left followed high with an open-handed punch aimed at throwing Miroslava off balance. From her position on the bench, she did not flinch, did not defend herself, did not even blink. The blow went off with a minimal miss. Tarnak froze in place. This moment cost him dearly. In the next instant, Miroslava's right hand moved quickly and silently. She darted up, palm open under his chin. With a controlled and light movement, she lifted his jaw, exposing his neck for a split second. Her left hand rose, 2 fingers pressed together like a blade, and found a spot just below his ear, at the base of his skull. With a sharp and decisive click, the crowd gasped. Tarnak fell like a sack of flesh, not sprawled or tumbling, but limp and crumpled, with his eyes open. A deep silence filled the room. Kyer had already rushed forward, limbs twitching with alarm. "The medical bots have arrived." Miroslava remained seated, her hands resting gently on her lap. She wasn't panting or looking triumphant. She calmly watched as the silver emergency unit hovered, its surgical arms already unfolding. "Tarnak's body has been scanned and stabilized." And in less than 15 seconds, Kyer turned to her. "How did you turn off the spinal repeater?" asked Kyer calmly. "It's temporary. He will recover in 8 to 12 days. Kyer stared at her. "Did you calculate it at the same time?" he asked. The instructors were whispering from the upper decks. One was tapping furiously on his holographic tablet, while the other was staring at Miroslava with a slower blink, as if reconfiguring everything he had assumed. Later that hour, in the briefing room, Miroslava sat across from Commander Erlin. He was thin and pale, with 3 vertical scars running down his chin, the marks of an ancient duel. He looked through her file again. Miroslava, 17 standard cycles, combat fitness 9.8, moderation index 1.2. He looked up and said, "This is rare." Erlin leaned forward. "I know," he said. "You could have killed him. Why didn't you do it?" "There was no need," Miroslava replied. "Most cadets would take the opportunity to assert dominance." Erlin watched her for a long time, then nodded slowly. "The instructors were divided," he said. "Half were in favor of expelling her because of her brutality, while the other half offered to transfer her to a more advanced level. One faction believed that she posed a threat to morale, while the other saw her as our best chance against what was coming." Miroslava was silent. "Tell me something," Erlin said. "Why didn't you get up?" She hesitated before replying. "Because he wanted me to do it." This surprised him, and he leaned back, mulling over the information. "You're here to prove something, aren't you?" "No," she replied. "I'm here to make sure no one forgets what a world traveler is capable of." By sunset, the Academy's internal network had gone viral. Someone leaked a recording of Miroslava sitting motionless, striking once and disabling the largest cadet on the base without getting up. The clip was played on dozens of screens, and the cadets watched in silence. No one commented. No kidding. Tarnak's friends were silent. No one approached her during the meal. She was sitting alone, in the same corner, with the same tray. But this time, no one was laughing at her food or blocking her way. They looked at her like she was a ticking time bomb. The commander stood in front of the military council display that evening with his hands behind his back. The senior instructors, Craxian, Aleri, and San, as well as the advisor from Terra, listened as he played the recording back. The elderly, bearded Terran exhaled through his nose. Kyr thought it was a sign of restraint, but Erland frowned. It was also a warning. Erland turned to the council. "I've received a message from Terra," he said. "The High Command has approved the test ascent of Cadet Miroslava." There was a murmur. "You're kidding," someone said. "She's not ready. She can't be sent on a mission yet." Erland silenced them with a look. "They disagree," he said, "and neither do I." Miroslava was not alone in her thoughts that night. When she returned to her dorm, she found that the rough drawing on her door had been erased. A tray with protein rations and electrolyte packs was left outside, but she ignored it. Inside, she opened her locker and looked at the emblem again. Her fingers hovered over the intricate scarlet pattern, almost touching it, but she refrained. Then she said one word. "Almost there." She closed her locker and got ready for the night. The trials will begin tomorrow. Miroslava stood at the entrance to the test chamber, surrounded by scarlet stasis lights and reinforced blast doors. Her expression remained mysterious, but her posture changed, becoming poised and determined, like a blade perfectly balanced on the edge. On the other side of the platform stood her opponents, 5 cadets selected by the instructors. Each of them came from a family of warriors trained to fight and kill. Their goal was not to win, but to survive it. A proclamation rang out in the chamber, echoing in many galactic languages, signaling the start of a test ascent and a combat encounter. No medical care will be provided until completion. The countdown began, and from the gallery above, dozens of eyes stared through the armored glass. Instructors, officers, cadets, and even Tarnok, still wearing a neurofixator, sat motionless in a corner, their jaws clenched, their eyes glued to Miroslava's every move. Commander Erland leaned forward. "Let's see if the rumors are true." The camera was sealed, and the countdown began. Miroslava flexed her fingers once, not out of nerves, but to calibrate. "Why isn't she moving?" hissed the Saran cadet. "She's analyzing us," one of the applicants said gloomily, tightening his grip on the hilt of the curved plasma blade. 5, 4, 3. The atmosphere became tense, and then, start. The first attacker rushed into the attack, holding a curved blade. She doesn't improvise. She's been rehearsing it. She had anticipated their movements, even their reaction to pain. The advisor from Terra nodded solemnly, adhering to the classical doctrine of the death worlds. Psychological dominance. Demonstrate sufficient accuracy, and they will stop perceiving you as a simple cadet. The fourth opponent was a formidable opponent, a muscular burly man wearing armored gloves and electrically charged gear. He did not attack head-on, but carefully circled. A wise move. Miroslava mirrored his movements, breathing slowly, her head tilted as if she was listening to something inaudible to others. Then she moved, without warning, without shouting, just a blur of movement and contact. She slipped under his protection, hitting his calf twice, then slammed her palm up into his ribcage. He counterattacked with both shields, but she was already gone, rolling to the side and turning into a spinning hook that hit him behind the jaw. His shields dropped, and he stumbled. She hit him again, this time in the center of his chest. He collapsed, defeated. There was only one opponent left. The last contender was a barnacle with a whip-like tail and dark skin. Stone stood at the edge of the arena, motionless throughout the fight. Miroslava looked at her, her gaze calculating. Varnatka blinked, took a step back and shouted, "The test is over." The room was plunged into silence again. Commander Erland stood up, and the battle ended. Cadet Miroslava's test ascent was not greeted with cheers or applause, only with the sound of heavy footsteps and the ticking of holographic tablets. Inside the cell, Miroslava finally straightened up completely and exhaled, not from exhaustion, but from the pressure of restraint. She turned and walked towards the exit, leaving behind fallen bodies, motionless but stable, all alive. When the doors rumbled open, Erland was waiting for her. "It wasn't just a walkthrough," he said. "It was a message." Miroslava didn't answer, studying him. "You've been trained for this since childhood." "No," she said softly, accepting the small black pen insignia he held out to her. The minimalistic mat marked her only with the Terra Coalition emblem. "Congratulations, Commander Miroslava. Later, a war awaited them at the academy. In the room, the instructors were watching a slow-motion recording. Analysts studied her punches, footwork, and recovery time. She has never resorted to deadly force, one observer noted. She didn't have to, Kyer said. It's even more impressive. She anticipated their movements, said another. The advisor from Terra agreed. She anticipated their preparations. Miroslava was sitting on the floor of her dorm, leaning against the wall. She opened her locker and took out a folded cloth. For the first time, she put it on her shoulders. The black and scarlet emblem flickered in the light. She closed her eyes. Outside, the cadets moved quietly through the corridors. Conversations have changed. No more jokes, no more whispers, just one name. The Traveler of Worlds.